Hi guys, welcome back to Bohs Fan TV, and today we're back with another video doing the match preview for tomorrow's game against Cork City at Daily Mount Park. Last week, we were deservedly dumped out of the FAI Cup, a pretty poor performance against Sligo Rovers, and yeah, that saw us bow out of the cup at the third round, and yeah, look, we've just got to draw a line under that now and move on to this game. We've got 9 league games left now, and we've got to take advantage of every single one of them. That starts tomorrow against Cork. And yeah, look, it's a game that we should be winning. I think we can all agree on that. They're bottom for a reason. They've had a pretty poor season. They've many things that have gone against them, injuries, stuff off the pitch. They have got a little bit of form going in the last few weeks. They done Waterford out of the cup there last week 2-1, and before that they went up to the Brandywell and got a solid point. So yeah, they will come into this with a little bit of confidence, but simply for ourselves, we just have to come out here and get the 3 points. Anything less would be really, really disappointing. We've got to bounce back from the last few weeks. We've wobbled slightly. We haven't won a league game since Galway, the 3-0 back in July. That does feel like a while ago. And yeah, the league's all we have now. That's our only route to Europe. So we've really got to knuckle down now in these next 9 games and get as many wins as we can, to avoid a repeat of seasons gone by, 2023, 2021, where, we felt like Europe was in our hands, but we ended up throwing it away. And, we can't have another season like that. So, look, it's really important that, we avoid something like that here by getting another win and, hoping that can kickstart a bit of a run, and then we can forget about the last couple of weeks. But onto the team anyway. I expect a few changes. That we all kind of scratched our heads slightly at the team last week. Talbot was in goal, Bucko in midfield. There were a couple of changes made that, probably looking back at it in hindsight, weren't the best decisions. I think Casper will go back in goal. I think that's probably a given. The defence, it's not so set in stone anymore, is it? You wouldn't be surprised if Cornwall was fit, he'd come back in maybe, and instead of either Byrne or Kavanagh, we'll probably stick with Flores and Moran as the fullbacks. Midfield, then you'd expect McDonald to come back in instead of Bucko. Going forward, then you could probably drop any of the front four. Parsons, Tierney, Rooney, or James Taylor, and you probably couldn't argue against it, really. They were all pretty poor on Friday. It's probably less so James Taylor. The service he got was poor, but Parsons, Rossi, Rooney, they can do much better, especially Rooney and Tierney. We expect much more from them, and look, you wouldn't be surprised if one of them are dropped, but yeah, it will be interesting to see, because you'd probably hope to see Clark come back in, but where does he go? Does he go back up front? Does he go into the 10? That's something that Reynolds will have to decide, if he does make that call. So yeah, there are choices to make for Reynolds there. So yeah, we'll wait and see what the team is like. But you'd expect, like I said, Casper to go back in goal, McDonald to go back into midfield. I'd say those are pretty much guaranteed. Or in the game itself, really, we've got to turn up here and get the win. There can't be any excuses. We're coming up against a poor Cork side, regardless of the last few results. I think they've got 2 wins and 3. We should be beating this at home. You'd expect a reaction. Surely we can't put in another performance as bad as we did on Friday. You'd expect that they were worked hard this week. Reynolds got stuck into a few, and they'll come out and show something different. But look, Cork will have that little bit of freedom. I think their fate is sealed. Really, it's pretty unlikely that they'll pull off a great escape. That they'll have that bit of freedom in their play, perhaps, and we have to be wary of that. But look, there's no doubt that we've got more quality than this. We've hit a bit of a rock in the last couple of weeks, but you'd hope that now that we're out of the cup, there's one route to Europe gone. You'd have hoped that acted as a wake up call for the players, and they'll come out here and show a reaction. So look, I'm gonna go with a 2-0 win. You'd hope and expect that we'll have enough quality to get the win. But look, it's the start of a massive, a few weeks ahead. We need to set the tone now. We need to get a big win here tomorrow. Get a bit of confidence back amongst the place, amongst the fan base. The last couple of weeks have kind of, it's kind of knocked out our confidence a little bit. Only a few weeks ago we were saying, right, we're flying. Europe is well in our hands now, and we could go on a good cup run. But obviously, cup's gone now. The last couple of results in the league have opened the door for a tighter race for the battle for Europe. But look, it's all down to us now to respond, to bounce back with a win, and hopefully put the last few weeks behind us now and get a run going, and stay within the top four, and ease a few worries amongst the fan base. So yeah, 2-0 win, just get the 3 points, and then we'll move on to the next few weeks, and hope that we can build something. So yeah, that's where I'll end it. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment down below what you're thinking heading into the game, your score predictions, and I'll see you for the match reaction the day after.